Republican Senator from Nebraska, Ben Sasse, joins me now. He is on the Senate Judiciary Committee, been part of the questioning and hearings this week. Good to have you with us.
Good to be here.
Your reaction to what we saw play out this morning?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, there are two sides to how you should feel about a hearing like this, right? Brett Kavanaugh is a great nominee, and he did a great job. Both his temperament and the substance of the way he answered questions is encouraging, so that's good for the Republic. The Senate, as an institution, is a joke too much of the time, and those hearings were a circus, and there was just so much nonsense, just consistent dishonesty in the way people would ask their questions.
Well, and you called it a politicized circus in a piece that you wrote for the Wall Street Journal. Today, your colleague, Senator Lindsey Graham, said, "I'm here to defend circuses because they're fun and you can take your kids," suggesting this is not that. There were a lot of kids there today. You wrote this too. Brett Kavanaugh has been accused of hating women, hating children, hating clean air, and wanting dirty water. He's been declared an existential threat to the nation. Alumni of Yale Law School, incensed that faculty members at his alma mater praised his election, wrote a public letter to the school saying, quote, "People will die if Brett Kavanaugh is confirmed." I mean, these hearings, do they serve the American people? Are they worth the time?
Well, we have three branches of government, and the legislature needs to be the political body. It needs to happen in front of the American people, even the 80-some people or whatever the number was who got arrested yesterday. That stuff needs to happen in the public eye in the legislature. But, boy, it would be a lot more useful if we were actually debating substance and doing civics in front of our kids. It felt like a grandstanding show as a lot of people tried to figure out how to rally their farthest leftist base as they run for president starting 2.5 years early. It felt like that was the main backdrop for most people doing that at the hearing.
There has been a lot of discussion about the role of precedent. Of course, Roe v. Wade keeps coming up. You asked him about that as well, because it's possible that courts do get things wrong and precedents don't last forever. Here's a bit of what he said.
The factors the Supreme Court looks at are whether the decision's not just wrong, but grievously wrong, whether it's inconsistent with the law that's grown up around it, what the real world consequences are, including workability, and then reliance.
What about this idea of righting a judicial wrong at some point?
So I said, can the Supreme Court make a mistake? And he said, absolutely. There are a whole bunch of mistakes, and let's start with Plessy versus Ferguson. And so we're sitting in 1896, and the Supreme Court comes out with this ridiculously racist decision, and there's only one dissent. And it's 58 years until Brown v. Board in 1954 that is righted. And so we want precedent on the one hand, because judges shouldn't be making up the rules of the game as they go along. And we want different circuit courts to know how you're going to mete out justice in a consistent way across the nation. And yet that doesn't mean that every precedent is sacrosanct. Lots of them are wrong. And whether you call it precedent, settled precedent, entrenched precedent, super duper precedent, there are precedents that are wrong. Judge Kavanaugh didn't go anywhere near this, but I believe one of the gravest wrongs of the Supreme Court is Roe v. Wade. And so I serve in a political branch. I serve in the legislature because I want us to recognize that babies are babies and do protections. And so ultimately, while Kavanaugh didn't go near there, it was very encouraging to hear him admit that the court is often wrong, and in its racist decisions in the past it has. And he said that Brown v. Board is one of the greatest moments in U.S. history, and I agree with him. And it was a correction of a wrong.
One group tonight, above the law, is saying that it is time to get rid of him already because he's perjured himself. They point to some comments from his hearing to his confirmation to his current seat on the D.C. Circuit in 2006, where he testified that he wasn't involved with handling a particular judge's nomination. Then they put that up against an email that shows he was invited to a meeting to discuss that judge's nomination. Here's what they say now. If Kavanaugh is confirmed, the Democrats will now have grounds to call for his impeachment every single day for the literal rest of his natural life. He perjured himself before Congress. We now have more on him than we had on Bill Clinton.
Oh, my. So if today was a circus, or if the hearing has been a circus, that's the Trapeze Act. So we need to back up and say, what did Brett Kavanaugh do when he worked in the White House? So he was a lawyer for a time for President Bush, but he spent 3 years as the staff secretary. Turns out if you're president of the United States, there's a whole bunch of paper that comes and goes to you. And so Democrats have tried to consistently say that they've not been able to get Brett Kavanaugh's documents. This has been an unprecedented amount of paper. More paper on Brett Kavanaugh has been handed over to the United States Senate than in any confirmation in all of it for a Supreme Court vacancy in U.S. history, 5 times as much paper as the last 5 nominees combined. What they didn't get, what Democrats didn't get, is every piece of paper that belongs to George W. Bush, because Brett Kavanaugh was involved in shuffling it at some point. And so this idea that Brett Kavanaugh somehow withheld information because he was CC'd on an email of stuff that's due for President Bush, it's laughable.
Well, great piece in the Wall Street Journal by you that is very thought-provoking. We'll send it out so folks can read it for themselves. In the meantime, Senator Sasse, thanks for coming by.
Thanks for having me way past my bedtime.
It is. You still got work to do. Thanks for coming in.